Hello, everybody. This is a conversation between myself, Rory Heap, and my good friend Andy Heath about how to get a hybrid meeting to be as inclusive as possible. Now, just to introduce ourselves a little bit, both Andy and I have worked on accessibility in IT at national and international ISO level on standards in the past, and we thought it might be worthwhile to offer our experience to people who are trying to think about how to resource their YourParty meetings and who are at the planning stage at the moment. So this is going to be a bit rough and ready because we decided that the easiest way to do it would be in the form of a conversation. So this is unscripted, and there will be times when we are prompting each other, but we hope that that will enhance rather than diminish the experience. So the thing I want to say first is that whether you're having a hybrid meeting or not, you need to pay attention to the accessibility of the venue. Obviously, the important group of people to think about and consult are people with disabilities or disabled people, depending on the term you want to use. And if you've got a local DPAC branch, work with them. If you've got people that you know in the community, work with them. But do make sure you check out your venue. The obvious things are ramps and accessible toilets, but also the journey to the venue, the ability to enter the venue, and the ability to move around the venue in an easy way. And while you're at it, it's quite important to check that the venue has got decent Wi-Fi. Andy, you might want to say something about what you do.
I'm going to say something about Wi-Fi in a moment, but I just want to add to what you said, Rory, to not trust what the venue says, because lots of places tell you they're accessible, and then when you get there, the toilet is at the bottom of some stairs, and there's no lift, and if you're in a wheelchair, you're screwed. So hotels particularly will always tell you they're accessible when they may not be. Best thing is to visit yourself and have a look. In any case, if it's a new venue, it's pretty wise that you visit a few days before to sort out technical things anyway, so you can do that at the same time. Okay, so this is all about broadening access. We feel that YourParty meetings should be open to as broad a range of people as possible. We don't want to exclude anybody, and everything we're doing here is about increasing inclusivity. And there are lots of little tricks that you can do to do that, and hybrid meetings being one. But starting right at the very beginning, what if you haven't got any Wi-Fi? And you might well have a meeting where you haven't got any Wi-Fi. And similarly, what if you haven't got any equipment? You've got one laptop. What can you do? You can get a camera and you can record the meeting and you can distribute it to people who weren't able to be physically there afterwards. You can do that with an iPhone or an iPad or a tablet or phone made by some other manufacturer. I see you laughing at that, Rory.
I am.
Although we've both got iPhones, as it happens. Right. Okay.
So, right from the bottom level of equipment, there are things you can do with a bit of imagination.
Yeah. So let's go up a level and presume that you've got internet access, but you haven't got any cameras, and you've got one laptop, you can still run a hybrid meeting. It won't be quite as involved between the audiences, as it would be otherwise, but you can still do it. You might have little amplification on the laptop. So what you can do is somebody has the laptop, people on the Zoom may be unable to be heard in the room, but they can type something in the chat, and you can read it out, and you can read responses back to them, and you can handle it in that way. And I have handled meetings in that way when necessary. What are the extra things you need as you're going up a little bit? Well, it'd be really nice if you've got a projector. And really, most of what we're talking about here tonight is you've got decent internet and you've got a projector. And how do you deal with that? You've usually got some kind of microphones as well, and we want to look at the kind of setup that you would use for that. Now, the very most basic thing, imagine you've got one microphone and that one radio microphone. This is not an unusual scenario. One way of handling it is you have it out the front, and people come out the front from the audience to speak. It's better if you've got more, but as you get more microphones, the problems multiply. The challenges, not problems, the challenges multiply as well, because you're into the territory where you can get feedback. Right, so from this point on, let's presume you've got, oh, wait a minute, amplification. I'm sorry, it's a bit chaotic because we're not making up as we go along, but we're remembering what we've got to talk about as we go along. Amplification and microphones. If you have a very small meeting, and I've often done this with very small meetings, microphones, I'm wearing one. It's called it's DJI. It's about 3 or 4 years old now. It's a wireless microphone. It's one of a pair. You plug a receiver into your laptop, and what I do, if I show you the other one here, I'm not using the other one for tonight, but what I do is I put this on a stick, and I pass it around the audience, and they use the microphone as needed. This is without amplification. As it happens, the laptop that I use has powerful enough volume, put it up to max, that people on the Zoom can actually be heard in the room that I use for small meetings. So you don't need any more. But if you need any more, if you haven't got anything, if you've got in a church, a village hall, and there's not really much there at all, and you need a little bit of amplification, I've got this, which cost me 15 quid from Amazon, and I pair it with some speakers that used to be my son's, very small things, and plug it into the laptop, and you're away.
So is it an amplifier?
It's an amplifier, yes. I didn't say, did I? I should have said it's an amplifier, and it can connect inputs to outputs and things. In fact, it's actually a very tiny mixer of a kind, Rory. But it works very well, and it costs 15 quid. You know, you can't really, that wouldn't break anybody's bank, would it? Not
Nope.
for your party meeting. So let's step up a level, and let's assume from this point on, we're talking of a fairly large meeting. One we recently had in Sheffield, there were 140 people in the room, and there were 50 people on the Zoom, and we had, there was in the room, there was, what do you call those systems? I've forgotten what you call them, Rory. PA system. There was an existing PA system with a mixer deck. So, and there was a technician provided, so we could connect everything together and we could make it work. And there wasn't any issue with doing it, but still, there are some kind of practices that you will need to adopt. Now, I use two laptops, and the reason for that is because I use two cameras. And the easiest way to manage that, though you can get fancy software that'll manage it and switch between, and if you really want to throw away a few £1,000, you can get wireless video transmitters, but they are quite expensive. But you can manage without all of that. I use an old. Let me switch it on. Right, you can see the video from that now. I'm pointing it at my window because I don't want any more cameras pointing at my poor state of decoration in the house. We thought it was more important to do this video than to finish my decoration. So my painting and so on. So we'd have to put up with that. But I'm not pointing any more cameras at it. But my view is that you should always have an audience camera, a camera on the audience, transmitting out to Zoom, and it's simply plugged into another laptop that is connected to the Zoom. So two laptops here connected to the Zoom.
It's important to say that the audience camera should not be connected to audio.
Absolutely. When you're in the room, video isn't too bad to get right, but audio is quite tricky to get right, and something that will throw you off straight away is if you've got more than one device connected to the audio in the room. You want one device connected to the audio. So when you join Zoom on another machine, you get a little box up and it says you can select don't connect to the audio. That's the box that you want. Now, sometimes having a machine muted is enough, but often it's not. Some machines still pick up and transmit audio when they are muted. So the best thing is not to connect them to the audio at all. Okay. So in terms of costs, I mean, that wasn't a great deal of cost. The main laptop I'm using is 5 years old, and it's fine for what it's doing. The other laptop I'm using is 10 years old. It's an MacBook, an old style MacBook Air, and I just use it to plug the camera in and get into Zoom, and control a few things from it. I make it a host as well, a co-host as well, so then I can control things from either laptop. I say it's 10 years old. You can probably pick them up for £50. By the way, if you need computers to do this, you can pick those up pretty cheaply as well. I buy second-hand laptops from a company called CEX. They're both on the high street and they're online, cex.com. It stands for Computer Exchange, but it's if you can not be too ashamed to go in there, because it's the shop that all the kids go in to change their game computer for another game computer. But they do sell very good inspected refurbished laptops for quite cheap. This is not a commercial recommendation, but if you're short of funds, you don't have to go out and spend loads and loads and loads. You can it's just how you do it. Yeah?
Let's move along a bit.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get on to cameras, I think. Yeah. Just to show you how it is, I've got one camera that cost about 300 that is looking at me now. That is quite nice and flashy and whatever. But the other one is it's not a GoPro, but it's like a GoPro. It's what is it? Let me just tell you what it is. It's a I can't tell you without looking at it. But it's the equivalent of a GoPro with the door taken off because it overheats if I don't. No battery in, and it just works as a webcam. You can use an iPhone or another phone as a webcam as well. I don't know how well it works with non-Apple stuff, but it works very well with Apple stuff. And so, cameras isn't a real problem. Okay, you can probably pick some up from your audience. Now we're going to talk about what are they, captions, and I'm going to move around the screen a little bit. Oh, just before I do captions, can I talk about audio, Rory?
Yeah, of course.
Right, audio settings. It's quite tricky to get them right, because you get feedback if you're not careful. If you have technicians and a system in house that can help, I think that's tremendous. Use it, please. Because it will make life an awful lot easier. One of the snags, you can use Zoom for all sorts of types of meetings, as you are aware. One of the snags is the filtering of voices. It's actually the filtering of voices and extraneous noise is actually very good on Zoom, and that's an advantage. But it's also a disadvantage, because if you've got an audience and they clap, the usual settings on Zoom will filter that out. And it's rather strange seeing an audience putting their hands together and not hearing any noise coming out. So I'll show you the settings that I use to get around that. Audio settings. I hope that menu's on the screen. I'm going to click on audio settings, and I'm going to zoom in a bit so you can see. Okay, this audio profile, that's the normal setting, Zoom background noise removal. But I think for most meetings, if you've got speakers out the front, speakers as in people speaking at the front, or in the audience even, you're going to want to allow applause, and it's part of the experience. So I use these: original sound for musicians, high fidelity music mode, and echo cancellation. They work. You will get some extraneous noise come through, so it's a little bit of a balance. If you've got a noisy fan, it could be awkward. But anyway, that's what I use for most meetings.
And you have to remember to click at the top, don't you?
You do. I'm about to show that. That's not the end of the story, okay? Because up here, it's not on at the moment, even though I've selected those settings. There's this little toggle switch here, original sound for musicians off, which you have to switch on in order to get that. You're not going to clap in this video, so I'm going to leave that switched off. Okay, so that's audio settings.
Okay, let's come on to the question of captions.
Yes, that's what I think so. I'm going to disable the audience camera just for this video. I wouldn't normally disable the audience camera. Right, now I'm going to put the captions on. Now, what's this captions thing about?
So why do we need captions? So some people argue that captions are a distraction.
And they are.
But they are much more of an enhancement than they are an inhibitor. We're talking about the automatic creation of a text version of what is being spoken, and this was added to Zoom after a lot of campaigning by people, particularly people with hearing issues. But it also turns out that captions are very, very useful for people who are not necessarily English first language users, and they're very useful for people who aren't used to, for example, British English, and they do provide you also with a written record post meeting so that you can actually look back and check who said what and all the rest of it. So, and there are two, Andy will tell you about this and show you about this, but there are two versions of caption text.
Yeah, they call them closed captions, okay, which is very strange terminology, but it's the terminology that's used. It means they're not embedded in the video; they're separate from the video. We should say, by the way, that human captioners can perform much better than artificial intelligence can. And if you've got the option of a human captioner, use it. Okay. Do you want to mention anything right there, Rory?
No. I've got a personal interest because my daughter does it for a living.
Okay. They're quite expensive. They're worth every penny, but you probably haven't got the money for them. There are services online where you can buy the services of a captioner who will join your meeting and caption your meeting during the meeting. Of course, captioners can interpret all sorts of things that to date AI has not been very good at interpreting, such as metaphors and so on. But AI is performing actually very well, and if you're watching this video at the moment, you will see that the text that's coming out of it is really quite useful. The difference between captions and transcripts is just a question of how much you can see at one time. For the moment, I'm going to switch captions off. I'll switch them back on in a minute, but what I'm going to do is display the transcript, view full transcript. Okay, and there it is. It's a bit harder to use because it's smaller, but there you've got the whole text all the way back to the beginning of the meeting all at one time. Okay, probably for the meeting you want captions switched on. It is distracting. Now I should explain that some people that people at home on Zoom will be able to switch captions on and off on their machine, and they won't see the captions that you're displaying. The point of this is that imagine that this is displayed on a screen to a real in the room audience. It will help some people in the audience to see the text rendered on the screen as well. And one of the things about it helping people is they don't necessarily tell you, particularly people who are hard of hearing. They often try and struggle and get through without telling you that the captions would actually help them. They don't want to be embarrassed, so it's a good idea to have them switched on anyway. Now, if we look at the caption settings, let's look at caption language first. You might see that huge menu of languages there. If you've got some people whose original language is one of these, it might help to switch them on. It's a bit slow at the moment, the generation of different languages, but I'm hoping it'll get faster as software and hardware improve here. Caption settings, you can change fonts and colors, background and foreground colors, and also position. Now on this screen there isn't a lot of positions. There's either pin to the bottom or pop out overlay. It's the pop out overlay that I've got selected at the moment. If you've got a different graphics display, which you certainly will have. In the Sheffield meeting we had a different graphics display. then you may have other options like alongside and so on. So you don't have to display it in the place where I've put it there. But this text here, these captions here, they are on top of the window that you can see. So I can move them around and put them wherever they are best seen. So just remember that they help a lot of people, not only people who are hard of hearing, people with particular cognitive conditions. They can help as well. Older people. They're reputed to help for dyslexia, though I don't quite understand how dyslexia relates to vision without captions.
I would say, I would go as far as to say that my view is that they are not optional.
Yeah.
I think we should regard captions as being mandatory if you're doing a Zoom meeting of any kind.
Yes, it's a very small price to pay for people who don't need them, and you'll be surprised how many people they do actually help. So what's next, Rory? What haven't we talked about?
Well, I think we've covered quite a lot of the ground that we need to cover, but I think that the major remaining stuff is around how is about the fact that there are practices that you need to adopt within the meeting to make sure that you make full use of the technology that you're using, and that will vary according to the size of the meeting. But from the point of view of the people running the meeting, you need some kind of checklist, really. But you need to make sure that whoever is chairing the meeting is aware of what's happening both in the room and in the Zoom part of the meeting, which is why we talked about the need for different kind of cameras. And this particularly relates, as far as the Zoom part of the meeting is concerned, relates to when and whether people have got their hands up, wishing to their virtual hands up, wishing to speak.
Yeah.
Which also means that you need to brief the Zoom meeting, because there will be people who still, believe it or not, don't know how to find the raise hands function. It's also important that people are identified by their real names or the name they wish to use, and don't just appear as iPhone or Galaxy or whatever it is, which means that you need to brief them that if they click on their own name, one of the options they will find is that they can change their name, and it's a temporary thing, so it only lasts for that meeting, and then it reverts to whatever it said before.
Yeah. I'll show people how to do that.
Yeah.
There's a whole other load of issues with if you're in most meetings will be people speaking. I think there won't be presentations, although you may need to display documents sometimes. But there'll mostly be you'll have a desk at the front with a chair and a secretary sitting there at the desk, and you'll be displaying somewhere on a screen. If the screen is behind the chair and the secretary, that can be a little bit difficult because you can't read text on their head. So that needs a little bit of careful arranging. In terms of screen management, now for some kind of meetings, it's helpful if your external screen is set up as an external screen, not the same as what you're getting on the main laptop. Meetings where you've got a lot of presentations can work very well that way, but it's actually really difficult if you're in a room with speakers to see the controls. This is the buttons that you have to press and also to see, sometimes to see what's going on. So I would recommend that for those kinds of meetings, if there's no reason why not, that you use what's called mirroring, so that the external display mirrors what is on your main laptop, and then you can control things on the main laptop. And it's nice and clear what you're doing. You don't have to move over to the external screen to press buttons, which is quite tricky. I can tell you from experience, it's quite tricky. So, given that the chair needs to know what's going on in the Zoom as well as what's going on in the room, I think the absolute best way to do it would be if the chair has a laptop that is signed into the meeting, but not to the audio. He only needs to see the screen. Okay. To that end, I intend to use 3 laptops for my next meeting. Again, they're only old laptops. There's nothing valuable there. But the third one will be for the chair, and I will log it in and do everything. So all he's got to do is sit down, and it's there.
He or she,
He or
please.
she. Yes, sorry, Roy. He or she. You might want to display on the screen the participants list, which is here. Okay. Obviously, there's only 3 participants here. You can, if you're controlling a meeting, you can do things from this participants list. If you hover over a name, you can do things with it, including, and this is where assigning yourself a name comes from, including rename. So for the people out on the call, if they need to put a name on there, on themselves, because it just says iPhone or XC314 or something, and yes, I've seen that in a real meeting. This is how they do it. They hover over their own name and they rename, which is one of those options down here. The only reason I can hover over Rory's name is because I'm the host of the meeting. Other people don't get that option. They can only change their own name. That list there, if you put your hand up, it will appear in that list there. So that's one way that the chair can see it. Now, the hand raise control these days, I don't know about on phones, but on tablets and on laptops, it's under the React.
It is on phones as well.
It is on phones as well, right? So
Yeah,
I'm going to just raise hand, so that you can see my hand is raised there. Now, if the chair can see that, it's obviously very helpful that he knows who has raised hands. Now, I think both Rory and my view of this is that you should try and involve both audiences as much as possible. This shouldn't be about a remote audience just watching a meeting going on. It should be about trying to integrate the audiences as much as you can. And to that end, I would do things like change the view while we're going along, so that we get, you won't see any difference here because there's only Rory and me. But with a bigger audience, you'll see a difference. I just clicked on gallery rather than multi-speaker. But so with a bigger audience, I would want the audience's videos to be on the screen. If people are embarrassed about that, they don't want that to happen, it's very easy. They can just disable their videos, and if you tell them that at the start, that will enable them to keep their privacy if they want to keep their privacy. And I think that's everything. Just look down my list and see what I've missed. Do you think I should talk about OpenCore Legacy Patcher, Rory?
No, actually,
Okay.
I don't.
I'll leave that then.
That's just Andy saying what system how he's running the system. Oh, go on.
Oh, okay. Okay. I can use old laptops because I run something called OpenCore Legacy Patcher, which is an open source piece of software. It's free, available to everybody. It's solid. It's maintained extremely well, and you can run any old Mac on the latest macOS operating system. To a degree, you can go back as far as 2012, realistically, a little bit further with troubles, but this enables me to buy cheap laptops and do things with them that you might spend an awful lot of money doing with any other stuff. But you need to be a bit of a techie to handle it.
Right. So about all of this, we just to sum up, really, we believe that the best way to include as many people as possible in a YourParty meeting and the development of the party as it goes along is to be as inclusive as you can, which means to run your meetings as hybrid meetings. We think that if you choose to do this, there are technical considerations that mean that it will be better managed than if you don't think about them. We've tried to think of as many of them as we can here, but there are a lot more things that we could say more about if we had the time. And if you want to know more about them, we are very happy to answer your questions or discuss alternative ways of doing things. And what we're trying to do here is just to offer our experience of being involved in running the technology for hybrid meetings, simply because we think that we'd rather people knew that there were ways of doing it than that they spent time floundering and wondering whether it was worth it or possible.
I've got a couple more little things to say, actually, Rory. So if you
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
round off too much yet,
okay,
rooms, okay, and groups, okay.
all right,
If you were on Crispin's show last week, you will have seen two meetings. The big one in Sheffield that I ran the technology for, and I didn't do it perfectly. I was constrained at the time, and the one in Preston, and they were very different in style. The one in Sheffield was highly political, existing political organisation. The one and it was speakers on Zoom, speakers on the floor. There wasn't a great deal of integration done between audience and remote audience, but that was out of my control. The one in Preston was nice and friendly and open, and they did group work, which is actually a really good way to get people working and expressing their views, and just talking to each other and so on. Now, it's not exclusive with having a hybrid meeting. You can do it with hybrid meetings as well. So what you would do is you would have groups in the room, and you would have Zoom rooms where maybe, depending on how many people you've got in a Zoom meeting, I mean, I find that once you get over about a dozen people in a group, you're struggling to you get people that don't contribute and so on, and you get problems. But so keep your group sizes down, but you can use rooms on Zoom, and each room can have a group of people in, and the one thing you can't do is you can't mix the two things up. So you have groups on Zoom and you have groups in the room, but you can't have the two things. Like, you can't have a group which is like partly on Zoom and partly in the room. That doesn't work at all. But you can make that work. And there was one more thing I wanted to say that I have now forgotten. Can you do some waffle while I try and remember?
No, you should have written it down, mate.
Oh, I should have written. Oh, well, yeah, I should have written it down, shouldn't
Right.
I?
So where I was rounding it off was to say that, oh yeah, what you might want to say is how to get in touch with you.
Yes, yes, definitely. Well, both of us really,
Yeah.
because we work together on a lot of things. It's by email, and it's to the address politics@axelafa.com. Now, let me just put that in a form where you can actually see it. So I'm going to use the chat window and I'm going to type it. By the way, you might want the chat window displayed on screen while you're in the room as well. But beware of private messages. There it is, politics@axelfa.com, which are coming to me, and I will pass on to Rory as well as appropriate.
So
Okay.
let's wish you all the very best of luck with future meetings. I hope this has been of some use to you. And if you want us to do another one on any particular aspect of this, we can do that if it would be helpful.
So thank you very much, and good night.